New York State Courthouse. The grand marble hall echoes with the sound of expensive heels clicking against the polished floor. Lawyers in tailored suits and court staff in crisp uniforms bustle around, exchanging pleasantries and sharp glances. In the midst of it all stands Ava Miller. Her hair is tied back in a neat bun, her simple gray office dress blending into the background. She clutches a worn leather briefcase, eyes scanning the room as whispers ripple through the crowd. "Who's that? The cleaning lady?" One lawyer sneers, adjusting his gold cufflinks. "Probably lost," another chuckles, casting a dismissive glance at Ava. Ava shifts uncomfortably, but maintains her calm demeanor. Her gaze drops to the floor as a man in an expensive suit strides past, his shoulder deliberately knocking into hers. Ava stumbles slightly, but instead of reacting, she takes a deep breath, steps aside, and offers a gentle, almost imperceptible smile. The man doesn't even bother to look back. For a brief moment, Ava's eyes flicker with something, a quiet resolve, a hidden strength. But she quickly composes herself, straightens her posture, and walks toward the courtroom, her chin held high. Ava steps into the courtroom, her eyes scanning the rows of seats. Almost every spot is occupied by impeccably dressed attorneys and well-groomed onlookers. Their expensive suits and designer handbags contrast sharply with Ava's modest attire. Ava walks down the aisle, searching for an empty seat. As she passes by a group of young lawyers, they lean in closer, whispering loud enough for her to hear. "Does she really think she'll get a fair trial looking like that?" One snickers, his eyes trailing over Ava dismissively. "Must have walked into the wrong room," another mutters, shaking his head with a smirk. Ava's jaw tightens, but she keeps her composure. Without responding, she moves to the very last row and slides into an empty seat, her shoulders squared and eyes focused straight ahead. As the whispers and side glances continue, Ava opens her worn leather briefcase and pulls out a small notebook, jotting down a few notes with steady hands. The whispers fade into the background, but the sting of their words lingers in the air. Victoria Reed, a renowned attorney known for her high-profile cases, steps up to the podium. Her tailored suit, gleaming watch, and polished demeanor scream power and success. She glances toward Ava briefly, an unmistakable smirk curling at the corners of her lips. With an air of confidence, Victoria begins, her voice smooth and commanding. "Your Honor," she says, addressing the judge, "the defendant here clearly does not understand the law and is not equipped to defend herself." She pauses for a moment, letting her words sink in, and then turns her gaze back to Ava. The sneer is subtle but sharp, as if she's already decided Ava is nothing more than an unworthy opponent in this courtroom. Ava sits quietly at the back, her pen gliding across the pages of her notebook, capturing every word Victoria utters. Her face remains calm and neutral, her posture unshaken. While the room buzzes with murmurs from the onlookers, Ava's focus remains unwavering. She knows the stakes are high, but she is not intimidated. Victoria's arrogance may have rattled the others, but Ava is resolute, making sure every detail is noted down. Victoria, sensing Ava's silence and stoicism, raises an eyebrow, as if surprised that her attempt to provoke has had no effect. She straightens her shoulders and continues speaking, her tone growing more condescending. Victoria steps down from the podium, her heels clicking sharply on the polished floor. As she walks past Ava, her gaze sweeps over her from head to toe. The glance is deliberate, filled with disdain, as if Ava's presence in this courtroom is an afterthought, a mere inconvenience. Victoria's lips curl into a small, almost imperceptible sneer, and she gives a slight, dismissive nod, as if to say, "You're not worth my time." Ava remains seated, her back straight, eyes fixed forward. She doesn't flinch, doesn't allow herself to react to the subtle attack. The energy in the room shifts, and Ava feels the weight of the looks from the others. But she remains calm, unbothered. As Victoria moves further away, a court officer leans in toward Ava. With a soft whisper, he adds, "I heard this trial has a new judge. She's fresh, inexperienced. You don't stand a chance against someone like her." Ava doesn't respond immediately. She simply nods once, her expression unreadable, as she continues to absorb the quiet judgments around her. She knows how they see her, but she doesn't let it shake her. Victoria, standing in the center of the courtroom, takes a moment to look around at her colleagues with a smug smile. Her voice rings out clearly, dripping with condescension as she gestures toward Ava, who is still quietly seated in the back of the room. She doesn't even have a lawyer, Victoria says loudly enough for everyone to hear. Typical of someone with no money. What did you expect, a fair fight? Ava's face remains impassive, though her grip on the bench tightens ever so slightly. She stands up calmly, her steps measured as she moves toward the door. There's no rush, no sign of panic, just quiet composure. Victoria turns toward her, her voice rising with mockery. Maybe she's realized she doesn't belong here, she sneers, loud enough for everyone in the room to hear. Some people just don't know their place. Ava pauses, her back to the room, but she doesn't turn around. Her expression remains neutral, but the weight of Victoria's words presses against her. Yet, Ava doesn't let it show. She takes a deep breath, opens the door, and steps out without another word. The room falls silent for a moment, the tension thick in the air. The power dynamic has been set, and Ava is poised to take back control. The courtroom is still buzzing with whispers when suddenly, the door at the back opens. A court officer steps in, holding a stack of papers, his voice cutting through the murmurs. "Everyone please rise," he announces with authority. "The court is now in session. Please welcome Judge Ava Miller." A moment of stunned silence fills the room. The atmosphere, once thick with mockery and disdain, shifts instantly to one of confusion and disbelief. Victoria, still standing with her smug grin, freezes. Her eyes widen, and her mouth hangs open as she watches Ava calmly walk towards the bench. Ava steps up to the judge's podium, her movements graceful and composed. She adjusts the microphone in front of her, her eyes meeting the room full of stunned faces. The heavy black robe drapes elegantly over her simple suit, a symbol of the power and authority she now wields. For a brief moment, the room remains still, everyone too shocked to speak. Ava takes a steady breath, her voice clear and strong as she begins the session. "Order in the court," she says, her tone unwavering. The words carry the weight of authority, and the room falls into complete silence. Victoria, still in a state of disbelief, can only watch in silence, her previous arrogance now replaced by an uncomfortable tension. Ava, however, remains calm and collected, as though she's been here before, because, in this moment, she truly has. Victoria stands up, trying to regain her composure, but there's a subtle tremble in her hands as she reaches for her papers. She clears her throat and begins speaking, but her voice falters. Thank you, Your Honor," she stammers, trying to steady herself. "As I was saying, the defendant clearly has no understanding of the legal proceedings here. Their case is a joke and, they are completely unprepared." Her words, once confident and sharp, now seem weak and unsure. She glances at Ava, but instead of the cold, dismissive gaze she had earlier, she meets only the unyielding, calm eyes of the judge. Ava's face remains a mask of neutrality, her attention fully focused on Victoria's every word. She writes in her notebook, carefully recording each statement, her pen gliding smoothly across the page, her demeanor unshaken by the tension in the room. Victoria's nerves grow more apparent as she continues, her words coming out in a fragmented, rushed manner. Her once steady hand now shakes as she flips through her notes, desperately trying to find her footing again. At that moment, a court officer leans over and whispers to Victoria, his voice low and conspiratorial. "You just insulted the new judge," he says, his tone a mix of surprise and warning. "Good luck with that." Victoria's face pales as the words sink in. Her attempt to belittle Ava, to undermine her authority, now seems like a grave mistake. The room is heavy with the weight of what's unfolding, and for the first time, Victoria begins to realize the true power Ava holds. The courtroom is silent as Ava looks up from her notes, her eyes locking onto Victoria. There's a cold, authoritative calm in her gaze, a stark contrast to the nervous energy now emanating from the young lawyer. Ava's voice breaks the silence, soft yet commanding. "Ms. Reed," she begins, her tone even, "I'd like you to come forward and explain your earlier statements." Victoria stiffens, the weight of the room bearing down on her. She hesitates for a moment before standing up, her legs feeling unsteady beneath her. She walks toward the witness stand with quick, jerky steps, the eyes of everyone in the room fixed on her. Once she's in position, she nervously adjusts her papers, trying to avoid looking directly at Ava. But Ava's unwavering gaze makes it impossible to look away. I I didn't mean to offend anyone, Victoria starts, her voice wavering. I was trying to make a point about the defendant's lack of preparation, and... Ava interrupts her with a calm but piercing question, cutting through Victoria's explanation. Ms. Reed, she repeats, her voice steady, do you think it is appropriate to judge someone based on their appearance in a courtroom? Victoria falters, her mouth opening and closing like she's searching for the right words, but nothing comes out. The room watches in tense silence as the power dynamics shift completely. Ava's question hangs in the air, the unspoken implication clear. Victoria's earlier attempts to undermine Ava, to diminish her, have now come back to haunt her. The audience waits, and Victoria can only stand there, stunned and speechless. The room remains eerily quiet as Ava stands tall, her posture poised and authoritative. She flips through her notes with deliberate precision before looking up at the judge's bench. With a calm yet commanding voice, she addresses the court. Your Honor, I would like to present evidence that proves Ms. Reed's repeated disregard for courtroom protocols. Ava signals to a bailiff who steps forward, handing her a stack of papers. She places the documents on the table in front of her, and the audience watches closely, their anticipation building. Ava carefully flips through the pages, each one a damning piece of evidence that highlights Victoria's attempts to undermine the process and ridicule the defendant. Here, Ava says, tapping a piece of paper for emphasis. This email exchange shows Ms. Reed's intention to make light of this case, dismissing its importance based solely on superficial factors. And here, she continues, pointing to another document, is proof that Ms. Reed deliberately ignored the rules of evidence submission, which resulted in the mishandling of crucial material. The room collectively exhales, the atmosphere heavy with the realization of Victoria's misconduct. All eyes are on her as the weight of Ava's words sinks in. Victoria, once so confident, now lowers her gaze. Her face flushes with embarrassment, her hands trembling slightly. The room watches in stunned silence as she remains motionless, unable to defend herself or speak. Ava takes one final glance at Victoria, her expression unwavering, before turning her attention back to the court. The tension in the room is palpable, and everyone knows that the tables have completely turned. The courtroom is still, the echo of the gavel fading as Ava rises from the judge's bench. She walks with quiet confidence, her steps purposeful as she heads toward the exit. The murmurs in the room die down, the weight of the trial's outcome lingering in the air. Victoria, her pride shattered, rushes forward, her heels clicking against the marble floor. She stops just a few feet from Ava, out of breath, her face a mixture of regret and desperation. I didn't know, Victoria stammers, trying to catch her breath. I didn't know you were the judge. Ava doesn't turn to face her immediately. She pauses for a moment, the room holding its collective breath. Then slowly, she turns to look at Victoria. Her gaze is cold, unwavering, like a force that pierces right through her. That's not the point, Ava responds, her voice calm but firm. What matters is how you treated me, and everyone else, based on assumptions. You thought you could dismiss me, because of what I wear. You're wrong. Victoria's face flushes, her hands tremble slightly. She opens her mouth, but no words come out. Ava turns away, leaving Victoria standing there, a broken figure in the midst of the stunned crowd. The camera zooms in on a smartphone screen. A video titled "Judge Humiliated by Lawyer," then shocks everyone plays. The footage captures the entire courtroom confrontation between Ava and Victoria, from the moment Victoria mocked Ava to the powerful moment when Ava was revealed as the judge. The video quickly gains traction. Views skyrocket from hundreds to thousands, then to millions. Comments flood in beneath the video. She handled that with such grace. Respect. Victoria got what she deserved. Never judge a book by its cover. Ava Miller is the embodiment of class and strength. Ava, sitting in her modest apartment, her phone vibrating non-stop with notifications. Text messages from colleagues and friends pour in, praising her for standing up to Victoria with such poise. Meanwhile, at a nearby coffee shop, Victoria scrolls through her phone, her eyes widening as she sees her name trending, and not in a good way. The comments are ruthless. Victoria Reed? More like Victoria Rude. How embarrassing. She really thought she was better than everyone. Victoria's face pales as she sinks back into her chair, her fingers trembling as she continues to scroll. The once powerful and arrogant lawyer now finds herself the target of public scorn and ridicule. Victoria sits alone in her office, the room eerily quiet. The blinds are half drawn, casting long, somber shadows across the floor. Her once cluttered desk is now nearly empty, with only a few scattered papers and her phone resting atop it. The door swings open, and her boss, Mr. Hamilton, steps inside, his expression stern and unforgiving. "Victoria," he begins, his voice cold. "I just got off the phone with the board. Your behavior in court was completely unacceptable. Not only did you embarrass yourself, but you brought a wave of negative publicity to the firm." Victoria lowers her gaze, her fingers nervously fiddling with a pen. "You're suspended indefinitely," Mr. Hamilton continues. "Take this time to reflect on your actions, and perhaps rethink your approach to people." Without another word, he turns and exits, the door slamming shut behind him. The echo lingers in the empty room. Victoria sinks back in her chair, staring blankly at the ceiling. Ava's words replay in her mind. "It's not about who you are, it's about how you treat others." Victoria picks up her phone and opens the viral video of her courtroom humiliation. The comment section is a relentless stream of criticism. She got what she deserved. Maybe this will teach her some humility. Victoria closes the app, tosses the phone onto the desk, and turns to face the mirror on the wall. Her reflection stares back. The confident, polished lawyer now looks fragile and lost. She takes a deep breath and exhales slowly, her shoulders slumping as the weight of her actions finally sinks in. Ava steps out of the courthouse, the grand pillars casting long shadows as the sun begins to set. The golden light bathes her face, highlighting the calm, serene expression that has now replaced the stoic mask she wore inside. She pauses at the top of the courthouse steps, looking up at the vast, open sky. A gentle breeze tousles her hair as she takes a deep breath, releasing the tension of the day. Ava closes her eyes for a moment, feeling the warmth of the sun on her skin. A soft, contented smile spreads across her lips, a smile of quiet victory, of dignity preserved despite all the judgment she faced. In a society obsessed with appearances, we often forget that true power lies in character, not clothing. Ava Miller reminded us that dignity cannot be measured by a price tag, and respect must be earned, not demanded. The scene shifts to Victoria sitting alone in her dimly lit office. The phone in her hand displays the viral video, and her eyes are filled with regret. Victoria learned that those who judge based on appearances are often the ones who miss the true strength within others. And sometimes, the quietest voice can deliver the loudest lesson. Let your actions define you, not your attire. Stand up for what's right, and never underestimate anyone. If this story resonated with you, hit the like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories just like this one. Your support helps us continue to inspire and uplift.